Hi, I'm Janice Wheeler. Today I'm going to come at you with a topic called dealing with negative feedback. And this can be offline or online, and so we're going to look at some tools for that. Here we go. We're going to talk about dealing with negative feedback. Now, that's a little bit of an inevitable thing because human beings are human beings and they like to complain about certain things, and we do make mistakes that do cause others to be upset. So let's look at what we could do about negative feedback. I mean, there's online methods of complaining about you now with great MDs and Google reviews and so, which are very popular. And you know, how you deal with it is going to impress people or not impress people. And there are really exact things that you can do about it. The first thing is, if somebody's coming at you offline, like in your office or something like that, or even emailing you or calling you, or your staff for that matter, the first thing that you should do is, realize that you need to handle something, that this person is upset. You're not going to go away, and you shouldn't let them go away with the upset either. So what you want to do is follow a little rule that one of my clients just taught me last week. I love this. He goes, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So when you're talking to someone, you should listen twice as much as what you speak. And I thought that really applies in this situation, where if you've got somebody who's very upset, what you want to do is listen very genuinely to them as to what the problem is and what they're upset about, and really listen. Ask questions to clarify if you're not totally certain about where they're coming from or what they mean by it, to show them also that you're really interested in what they have to say. That is half the battle. I swear to goodness that is half of the battle, is actually listening to the person. So many times you have probably been upset about something and you try and explain it to someone and they don't really care. They're not really listening. They keep on playing on their phone or fiddling with it or whatever, and you know that they're not really listening to you. That angers you more, doesn't it? So we want to avoid doing that. So the first thing is listen twice, and then the second rule is now you can speak. And what you want to do is to make sure that you really, really acknowledge the person. Let them know that they have been heard, that you understand what they're saying. It doesn't mean you're agreeing with it or that you're giving it 100% validity, what they are saying, but you want to let them know, yes, I totally hear you on that, Mrs. Jones. I'm so glad you told me about that, because if you hadn't, I wouldn't otherwise have known that we have this situation. Thank you for sharing that with me, Mrs. Smith. Something like that. For a younger person, you might say, oh my God, I totally get it. Okay? So you really want to make sure that whatever acknowledgement you give them, that they really get it, that you heard what they had to say. And that's the second half of the battle. So your first part is to really listen and hear and understand what they're saying, and that defuses half of what it is that they're upset about. And the second half could be completely handled just by your acknowledgement. Maybe that's all they wanted. They just wanted to be heard. All right? So make sure that you have those 2 points in very, very well. Now, you should not justify why the upset happened or why the mistake happened or whatever. Maybe they hated it that you ran late today by a half an hour and they were there on time for their appointment. Or maybe it was, you're short-staffed because 2 of your staff didn't come to work today because they're sick and they're not supposed to come in because it could be COVID-19. Therefore you have to take the situation and acknowledge it. But sometimes you can actually, without justifying it and making it okay, you can explain it to them, saying, we ran a half hour behind today because this morning we had 2 patients come in that were in really big trouble, and we had to immediately service them to handle the physical problem that they were having. And it will come back to you one day when you have an emergency and need to come and see us, and we will fit you in right away as well. because that is our policy to take care of our patients in the ultimately best way we possibly can. we couldn't tell those two people to go away. Normally we have a morning spot that is open and an afternoon spot that's open, so we can fill in an emergency during that time, but these two were like, take care of it now. So what we're doing with all our patients that experienced us running behind today is we have a $5 gift card from Tim Hortons or Starbucks, your choice, to say we apologize, and we'll try to make sure we're running on time next time you come in. Okay, I mean, what can you do? You've apologized and you've taken responsibility for it. You've explained what happened and how you're not going to let that happen again. And oh, by the way, here's a little extra something, which is step 4. Give them something a little extra that they take away from that appointment. Maybe you can do a little extra service or something instead of the $5 Tim or Starbucks card. Believe it or not, those are used by a fair number of offices for handling when they run behind by 10 or 15 minutes. So something to think about. The next aspect of this, I want to take up handling or dealing with negative feedback online, because nowadays, as I said earlier, there's a lot of avenues, Google reviews being one of the main ones, but there is RateMDs as well, and many others, Yelp and so on, Better Business Bureau. I mean, there are a lot of avenues for somebody to express their upset. And if you don't handle it on the first time they post, they'll post it elsewhere until they get heard quite often. So the first thing is, you should never see your first response in the light of day. Because, you know, it's not fun getting a criticism, especially on Google reviews where the world can see it, and you're kind of at the mercy of it being there. As long as it's not untrue, you can't take it down. If it is untrue and you can prove that it is, they will take it down. However, 9 times out of 10, it's not going to happen. So your first reaction can be quite angry, and what you should do is write in handwriting your response so that you can calm down, and it takes you a little while to write it all out, or send yourself an email saying what you wanted to say, your first impulse. And then make sure that you delete that so that that never sees the light of day, and then rewrite it, but do it from the viewpoint of, you know how you're going to handle it so that it doesn't continue. If you if you write out something that's really, really negative in response, that could spiral out of control. And the person may get quite upset and answer it back online and so on, and then you've got a viral rant going on with each other, and you don't want that. The next point is, don't ignore the review. When you ignore the review, it kind of indicates that you either don't care, or that you don't think what they're saying is important, and that you are not paying attention to these things. I don't know. So somebody who's a future viewer of your reviews are going to see there's no answer to this one. Maybe it was valid. Maybe he doesn't care. And it's not a good sign about your practice. The most ideal way would be to say, to answer back, hi, this is Dr. So-and-so. I'm very saddened to hear that happened at our practice today. We work so hard to give our patients ideal care and to make sure that they're completely happy with their service. So it does distress us when we fail. And I would love it if you could call me at blah blah, or email me at blah blah, whatever is the right numbers and email address. And I will do my best to bring this to full satisfaction for you. How could you not love that? And that also puts in the good PR that you normally don't have these things happening. And you're taking the high road rather than the argumentative road, which is never going to go anywhere good, not online. So basically, there's one more thing that I want to bring up about reviews. For instance, I personally look at the number of stars that a person gets, and 5 obviously is perfect, but as one of my young millennials, actually I have several of them working here, pointed out to me, if somebody has a perfect 5 score and they've got like 25 reviews or 10 reviews and there's nothing bad, that's very suspicious. And they actually regard it as suspicious because there's too many good ones as opposed to 1 or 2 bad ones in amongst the lot. So, there is a rule that if you have 13 good reviews, it will cancel out 1 bad review. So you're allowed 1 bad for every 13 good ones. And that keeps your score probably around between 4.0 and 4.5, 4.7 in that range. And my millennials say that's what impresses them, and that means they would go and see you because that's a good review. If it seems more honest because there's a negative 1 or 2, and then just make sure your handling or your answer to the negative ones are appropriate. All right, so what do we learn from all of this? That we're not infallible, and that we're dealing with human beings, and human beings have reactions to things that you do, and some will love you and some are going to be upset, but it's a very small handful. So what you want to do is just keep in mind that they too have been in a similar situation to you. Everybody has a bad review in life sooner or later, as we are not perfect, but just work on being as perfect as you can, as confident and competent as you can, and handle the negativity in the high road way rather than argumentative way. All right, so just do your best and have fun with it and deliver awesome service to 99% of your patients. Okay, that's all I have to say today. So if you like what we had to talk about, share it with your friends, give us a like, and there you go. Bye for now.
To get your practice analyzed, contact the Art of Management at 416-466-6217.